Well, hello everybody. It's good to be with you for the final of our feedback videos, Richard. It's 4 weeks has just flashed by very quickly.
It always does, Craig. I think we should make this a 40-week course, just saying.
Why not? I
Maybe
think
then we'd be able to do some actual justice to the topic of mindfulness.
that's right. We've only scratched the surface, and in this week, some interesting things have come up as well. The choiceless awareness meditation has been found quite difficult by some, and I think that's really one of the things reasons, I suppose, why we don't introduce it as one of the first practices is because it is so much easier for the mind to wander off when it doesn't have a kind of a fixed return point, if you like,
Mm.
as we do in concentration. But a lot of the learners have really noticed what the potential also of that choiceless awareness practice to, in a sense, just to notice things, and just this sort of sense of standing back as that impartial observer, and just letting things rise and fall in awareness, and that sort of that sense of expansion that can come with that, and a kind of a sense of freedom as well.
Yeah, that sense of just allowing everything to be as it is. I mean, how could you get more free than that? How could you get more sort of a greater sense of ease than just allowing everything to come and go and be what it is? I mean, even one of our learners was saying, I felt like I was sort of listening to the clock and listening to this and feeling my tummy rumbling, and they noticed their attention just wandering around, cycling, as they said, between different things. And they said, well, is that open awareness, or is that just cycling around? And of course, that's what's happening. The attention has these habits to kind of go. And if you're just observing that and allowing that to happen, then that's choiceless awareness practice. It
Yeah.
really is just allowing everything to be as it is, getting out of the doing mode, which we spend 99.9% of our time in, and inhabiting the being mode, just being.
Yeah, and a little bit like getting to the top of a mountain, and you can look from the top of a mountain and look at a car going along a road, or look at particular, clump of trees somewhere, or you could just sit back and just take in the view. And the
Mm.
attention might take in this or that, but the attention's just very free to take in the whole scene.
Yeah.
And I guess that's the sort of expansion with it. Another topic that came up is what about imagery and simile,
Mm.
metaphors and analogies?
Because of course we provide some of them. We sort of
Yeah,
talk about trains of thought and stuff, so, and training the puppy, and some of them are quite useful.
yeah. And I think there's a kind of a distinction to draw between mindfulness practice and maybe forms of visualization, where we are, in a sense, giving attention to a mental image, etc. These metaphors are not necessarily for the purposes of visualizing them, visualizing a train or visualizing clouds going across the sky, etc. They're really just metaphors to help us to understand how the process works. And if the mind goes to thinking about trains, and is it a steam train or an electric train, and is it fast or slow? It's like it's nothing to
Yeah.
do with that. It's just the kind of giving us a way of working with the understanding the process. That's what the metaphors are really about.
And
Uh,
that's just more mind wandering and default mode activity, in a sense, what you're describing there, all that visualization and imagining. And look, it's not inherently bad. I mean, early on, it might be useful to have a sense of, like, there are practices like leaves on a stream and the thoughts float away down the stream, or etc. But ultimately, like you're saying, we want to move in the direction of not adding anything to the practice, because again, mindfulness really is stepping out of the doing mode, and all that is still mental doing, and just kind of stepping into the being mode and just allowing everything to be as it is and maintaining presence in the midst of that. And so, of course, any visualization by definition is sort of doing. So we want to just let that go and let that go, don't we?
yes, and and that's not to say that visualization exercises or imagery can't have their own particular role or aspects, or be used mental rehearsal. They're variations, they're different practices that can have their own role, but not
Yes.
really as a pure mindfulness practice. There's some interesting discussion that came up this week about as well, core values and living
Mm.
aligned to
Yeah.
those.
Well, of course, mindfulness is a way of just being. Just being, I'll just leave it there. But it's also a way of looking deep. The end. Yeah, but it's also a way of.
Space.
It's also a way of looking deeply inside, and it's a way of bringing attention to things that might otherwise be neglected and getting a sense of clarity. And it's been a really interesting exercise, we can see, for a lot of learners. And there was one particular I mean, it's so important. I mean, just sort of in general to recognize what our values are. What are the things that guide us in life? And what are the hidden values as well? You know, what are the things that we might think we value health, but then we spend, 80 hours a week at work. Well, do we really? Maybe the, success and achievement is sort of a hidden value. And it was an interesting distinction actually that one of our learners made, noticing that, there are certain core values that they aspire to live by, like calmness and fairness and open-mindedness. But then, they were sort of thinking, well, I'm not sure if they also value things like excellence and professionalism and success, or whether they're just sort of questioning where that might fit in. But it's an interesting point because there really are, I guess, there are personal values. The ego might have values around professionalism and success and excellence.
Yeah.
And in some ways, they might go a little bit beyond the personal, beyond the ego. There's nothing wrong with wanting any of those things. But I think when we sort of let go of that sort of that grasping and that sense of trying to prove something in the world and build the ego or chase success or get a sense of self-worth through success and validation, quite often what shows up are a different value set, aren't they? Things like calmness, fairness, open-mindedness, things like, pro-sociality, compassion, altruism. These are all, and I see this time and time again when people that I work with in courses or coaching clients, whatever, get unstuck from their limited sense of self. They very often just become more pro-social and they embrace a very different value set, a sort of transpersonal value set.
Yes. Yes. And so we're not particularly trying to be prescriptive and saying, well, there's, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, these are what your values should be. And if you don't hold those, then you're not mindful. It's just, I mean, we can use mindfulness to help us to be aware of the values we're actually being driven by and to choose
Mm.
them consciously and
Yeah,
reflectively
right.
and get back to those really deeper values.
Yeah.
Um,
Or at
and
least, or at least to ask the question, like,
yeah.
what is truly meaningful?
Hmm.
What would be an actually, if you're looking back on your life, at the end of your life, you're looking back, what would have actually created a sense of, genuine fulfillment? What would have made for a rich life? And it's, you ask people in hospices at the end of life, what do you regret? What are you proud of? They never wish they'd worked longer hours or, you know,
Yes.
spent
Got
more
a few
time on
more emails
Facebook.
done.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Speaking
was
of
just,
death, Craig, that was a topic that came up this week.
yeah,
Mindfulness and death. Really
yeah,
interesting conversation
yeah.
around that.
That's right. And I suppose that, how transitory life can be, success and pleasure and pain and failure and all these kinds of things go up and down. And all of a sudden, we take so many things for granted, and then we're confronted by reality. That is, the body has its own lifespan. And it's amazing how it can really focus the mind. It can be used, that experience can be used as a real spur to personal growth and deep reflection and deep understanding and wisdom. Or we can turn away, ignore, numb it, pretend it's not there, etc., and don't take anything away from that sort of reflection about death, whether or not we've got a um, you know I suppose a life-threatening illness. We can still be reflective about this whole life is transitory, and it
Mhm.
really, I suppose, is a spur not to get attached.
Yes.
Things that to enjoy things when they're there, but not to get attached to them because they will go and because that attachment leads to anxiety and grief and all the other things rather than the enjoyment and the savoring of things when they're there.
Mm.
I mean, and when we go to a movie, you know, and you kind of really love a movie and it has its ups and downs and moments of tension and dramatic, sort of tension and so on. And it's not like, oh, I just want a movie that's all nice right from start to finish. It's sort of like you enjoy the entirety of the movie. And if we can view our life like that and enjoy the entirety of it,
Yes.
it's a rich drama and so on, and has its moments of tension,
Yeah.
its moments of pleasure and pain and so on. Then we can, in a sense, savor it much more and really value what gives life it's really sort of intrinsic worth.
Very ancient Greek right there. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's so modern, isn't it, as well? And I think, it also helps us to live well. A lot of wisdom traditions, I think, Buddhism particularly talks about learn to die well because
Mm.
in the process you learn to live well. You know, if we confront the fact that we're mortal as well and we've got a limited time here, maybe we're less likely to get caught up in junk values and spend so much time on social media and just kind of wasting time, you know. But the problem is we think we have time.
Yeah.
This is the
Yeah.
thing. And so we're like, oh yeah, I'll get to this eventually. I'll meditate tomorrow, or I'll reach out to that person tomorrow, or I'll look after my health next week, or and you never know, right? So so I think when we really confront this in the way that you're describing, there is less attachment, but there's also more engagement in some way. So it's a healthy way to live, to really confront the fact that, hey, we're here for a short time.
Yeah, yes. So anyway, it's been a very rich course, and it's been tremendous for us to be a part of it and really follow the learners. Interesting conversations and growth. Jen's done a fantastic job of mentoring, and
Yeah,
she's going to
thanks,
be
Jen.
doing that until Sunday night as well,
Mhm.
when that'll stop. But just a few final reflections as well. The step 4.17, reflect and connect. We'd really value final reflections from everybody in the course. Please share if you're happy to. And just to also think, looking forward, the Mindfulness for Wellbeing and Peak Performance course goes live again on the 31st of May.
That's our introductory course for anyone that doesn't know about that
That's
one.
right.
You've done the
Yeah,
advanced course now, so now go and do the introductory course.
that's right.
Fill in the gaps.
We'll
Yeah.
do it again, or certainly
Yeah.
recommend it to anybody else who might be interested to do that course. And of course, this course will be running again later in the year as well.
Mm.
And of course, there are mindful moments in the Monash Mindfulness YouTube channel as well. If you'd like some extra bits and pieces and topics,
Little
please feel free.
bite-sized nuggets of mindfulness.
That's right.
Mindfulness wisdom. Also, like, yeah, you talked about sharing feedback in 4.17, but also just to share with your friends. If you've loved this course, please tell them about it, because we get so many word of mouth referrals every time we run this, and it's so great. You know, it's really great. So if this has really touched you in some way, or you found it useful, yeah, please tell your friends about it. Or you can rate and review it. There are some links for jumping online and reviewing the course so that other people will hear about it. Obviously, yeah, there's the upgrade option as well if you want to continue to practice these things. I've mentioned that a few times, so you can do that. Yeah, but I guess that's kind of it, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I'd just like to wish everybody best of luck in maintaining a mindful life.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody.